So I'm doing video request, super high video request by Andy Rams. Video request, Kyle, please do this. What is your view on courage? Is there such a thing, or is it all ultimately self-interest of foolishness? Thanks. Okay. So, is there such a thing as courage, otherwise known as bravery and fortitude, or is it just people who don't understand consequences, just doing stuff because they think they can be successful? I guess is what you meant. So I Wikipedia'd courage, the word, and um, it was the same word that was redirected from bravery, and in the past it was known as fortitude. Um, Plato had like four cardinal virtues, and courage was one of them. Courage, virtue, honesty, and something else. I'm super high right now. I just had a whole joint. Okay, so yeah, I'll just talk about, and it was the request was on my "We Should Rebuild Rome" video, and in that video, I was talking about the causes of the fall of Rome, like why we need to rebuild Rome, why it's in ruins is because people didn't follow the law, um, and so yeah, it's an appropriate question from that video because yeah, it's people didn't have the courage to follow the law. And some of the people who did have the courage met some pretty sad ends. For example, people, you have to, in order to, in the ancient world back then, once people stopped following the law, um, like in Byzantine era and in the Roman Empire when it was run by generals, is might makes right. People just do what they can get away with. And so, what happens if you're in a so people are in sticky situations? Good people, for example, if you are the member of the royal court, like Commodus, and he's killing all these people around him because he's paranoid, and then he starts giving you the screw eye because of some weird misunderstanding because he's a crazy guy because now he's gone nuts. Um, like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna kill him, or are you gonna um, not kill him? When the right thing would be to not kill him. Let's see, what would be a better example? Diocletian. He's an interesting character. He was one of the best Roman emperors. He fixed the Roman Empire, reorganized it, um, modernized it. Was emperor for like 18 years or something, and then he abdicated. And he didn't give a reason. He should have given a reason. But maybe he abdicated because he also changed people's idea about what the emperor is, and he made the emperor like very hard to get, but below, like beyond a bunch of levels of, And I thought it was just like, I interpreted that as meaning security. He wanted to make the office more secure, and so then he felt guilty about doing all that and making the emperor so untouchably godly that he just abdicated to try to start the precedent of abdicating. Um, but that would take courage. Like if you're thinking about the future, like if I abdicate, I could lose my power, and then my whole family could get assassinated, thinking that they're going to use their family ties to oust the new guy in power. Because people were doing that then. But and so the easier thing would just be stay emperor and stay in power and keep your family safe. But if you really loved your empire and you wanted to set an example for everybody else by abdicating because you knew that was the right thing to do, that's courageous. And then he abdicated, and his wife and daughter ended up getting killed because the new guy, after a bunch of civil wars, the new emperor was paranoid, and Or how about when all the Goths, a million Goths, crossed the Danube River in 363 or 373, um, and there were those Roman garrisons there, and they could have fought to the death, and they would have all died, but they would have, you know, fought bravely like what they're supposed to do, or not fight and let all of the Goths in. So fighting would have been courageous, you know, doing something. So I'm rambling. Maybe I should. I'll put on the link below where I actually get started. So my definition of courage is people who can follow the law, even if it's difficult, and even if everybody around them don't want to. Like maybe there was a guy who says, "Oh, let's fight these Goths," and everybody else says, "No, no, 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 no." It would be courageous for him to go, "No, we fight anyway," and to run off for nothing. So yeah, I think that's where the foolishness comes in. It's just interestedness and foolishness, because that one guy who, as the Goths are coming in, who's running off into the Goths, no way, I will fight. That would take courage, because um, maybe he has a family and he's killing himself for nothing, and then everybody will just tell him he's an idiot for doing that. But unless he thinks that he'll be a hero for doing that. So I guess it's courage would be the best in terms of preventing the downfall of the Roman Empire. How people need to be more courageous. I probably shouldn't have been so high when I did this video. Is people they set up the Roman Republic, where a consul, like the president, would be president for 1 year, and there'd be two of them. So they would, not like now where we have the president and the vice president, where the president has the power and the vice president just is there to take his place if he disappears. They would have two presidents, and each one could veto the other one. And so more checks and balances, I guess, than now. And they were only president for 1 year, and here they're president for 4 years. And but then people started having too much power. It became, I guess, an empire, and so armies. They needed bigger armies, and whoever was in charge of the army could control the whole country. First guy to do that, to prove that was pretty much the new way, was Sulla, in like 100 BC, and then after that it was the empire. So, but still, people who fight for democracy. So I would say that the most courageous people are the people who fight for democracy, and fight for the good of the country, in expense of their own personal reputation and the time being. So courage would be the person who follows the ultimate law that everybody would agree on publicly. Like, we all need to do what's right for the country, even when everybody somehow tricked themselves into only being selfish, and so they would even make you try to disparage you for living for the good of the country instead of being selfish. For example, like there's a bunch of I guess a family member like Diocletian, somebody who could put his job on the line, but if he goes down, he'd take his family down because he's the breadwinner for the family. Or if you're say a wealthy landowner in France, and you have to donate a certain number of slaves to the army, and all of your friend landowners are hiding their slaves, their true number of slaves, so that they don't have to donate many slaves, so that they can make more money, even though they're all vastly more wealthy than the peasants around them. And the only way, and so you don't want to do it, but if you did, hide your slaves and not give all of them, I mean, if you did like follow the law and give as many slaves as you're supposed to, then you would go out of business because the new order of things is that you is skewed towards forcing people to lie because they have to because they're expected a certain number of wheat per year to give, and they need a certain number of people. But the government says that they need even more because people are already lying about how many they really need. And so if you're honest, you give up what you're supposed to give up, but now you don't have enough people. And then so you would try to complain to the emperor to change the law, but he won't see you because he's a dick and he's like um, not talking to you, but he still wants to tax you. Yeah, I mean that would be courageous of you to kind of break from the current uh, system that you're dealing with. Huh. I'm a little bit too high to explain this well. Maybe nobody's understanding what I'm saying. I should do this video again when I'm sober. But what would be another example? Oh, hey, me. Let me explain me. Like say, how about you're a stoner, okay? And everybody knows that weed should be legal if you really talk about it, and you give them all the information about it. And if you did that, they would give in, but they don't want to hear it. Um, and so nobody wants to admit that they're a stoner. And so if you admit you're a stoner, then you're like blackballed or even arrested. It would take courage sometimes to keep doing it, even if you're not, you know, um, making any money. Like there's this guy, what's his name, Bob Lazar. He worked at this place, Area 51, as a back engineering scientist to try to figure out how these flying saucers work, these anti gravity flying saucers. And so he was working with a bunch of other scientists, and he saw this thing, and then he goes, "Well, this shouldn't be a secret." So he goes and he tells all these people about it, and I think writes a book or something, and then everybody says he's crazy and don't believe him, and he kind of becomes blackballed, and people make fun of him and stuff. Um, for example, he bought an old abandoned missile silo, and he bought it to try to make a cool house out of it. But other people said that he bought it to try to for some other nefarious reason or something. So anyway, he said that he wished he never even came out because it just made him a black sheep. Um, Now you could categorize him as being more courageous than all the other um, scientists who were just kept it secret because it was easier for them, even if they thought that they should tell the public what they saw. Because if it's written in the law book that you're supposed to tell what you see, and especially something big like that, um, or if it's kind of common knowledge that if you see something like that, you should tell everybody. But then it's it's like there's two different kinds of common knowledge. There's common knowledge that perfect example would be the politicians. Those kinds of common knowledge. It's common knowledge that there's two types of common knowledge. There's the public common knowledge of the politicians where they're like, the American people want marijuana to be illegal. The American people um, want the states to decide about health care. The American people don't want universal health care. All this stuff. The American people don't want minimum wage of $15 an hour. Um, but then when they're closed doors behind their friends, they're like, oh yeah, we lost the popular vote, but let's gerrymander this district so that we can win, even if the people don't want us to win. Our policy. They did a study, Pew Research, that our policy actually isn't human people. Our what we want isn't. It doesn't influence policy at all. It's all the donors. They control all of it. Give the money to the guys. You need a shitload of money just to run. So, and then to win, you need a shitload of money. And yeah, and so if you look at the statistics, everybody, 75% of people want universal health care, yet we're going to have it taken away from us. Like, how does that make sense? And if you even, one thing that puzzles me is weed. Only 51% of people wanted to vote weed being legal. So, but yeah. So anyway, yeah. So courage would be a politician who gets out and says, like, I guess Elizabeth Warren, getting out and saying all that stuff about politicians who support the bankers and didn't bail out the bankers. You could view her as being courageous if you view it as her being inside of her world of all of the politicians, and they all like hate her and are giving her like dirty looks and stuff, and then she ends up not being successful, and then she kind of fades away, and all the memories that she has of her life is people like being rude to her and all that. If that's what you foresee is what happening, was what it's happening, like in the face of certain defeat, and you still do it, that would be courageous. But I mean, the way I see it is it's a perception thing. Um, I mean, if she just thinks she's just smarter than all the other ones, and she knows that she'll go down in history as the good politician, and they're dumb and they don't care, they don't realize that, or they don't care because they won't be around then. So you know that word courage could kind of be interchangeable with somebody's uh, how much value they put on the opinions of all of the people around them. And I mean, that could be foolishness if it ends up destroying your life. Like somebody um, puts their head out, puts their neck out. Um, for example, there's this one in 1056. There's this one general named Theodosius who tried to do a rebellion against the evil emperor. And so he organized everything, and then he showed up in front of Hagia Sophia to, shut down the empire, and nobody else showed up, and he was just sitting there by himself. So was this guy courageous, or was he just foolish? Because he, if he was foolish if he thought that he was going to like become the new emperor, or the hero of the revolution, and then he wasn't, and he ended up dying. And I guess it's all his perception, because if he did it for the motivation to become emperor, then he would feel foolish as he's dying. But if he did it to try to overthrow the emperor, then as he's dying, he would be feeling like a soldier dying on the battlefield, and he'd be proud because he not just for his own sake, but for his reputation, going down in history as somebody who went against a bad person. So that it's it depends on your own self perception of what you think, of what your motivations are. So I think at the end of the day, courage just has to do with if you have to deal with that word, like courageous, doing something that you believe is right because you're following the high law, like the two law tier, like 2-tier law system, like what Martin Luther King was talking about. Like they had the law of segregation, that was the actual law. But then there was the real law, which was you shouldn't have segregation. So how do you break the false law so that you can protect the real law? And that's by doing those demonstrations, the peaceful demonstrations. So the courageous person would be the person who knows what the real law is and follows the real law, even though everybody around him doesn't want to because they're all hypnotized into following the false law because it's easier for them. Um, and then or refusing to even talk about it because it's easier for them. Um, yeah, that would be a courageous person. Um, but that wouldn't be a courageous person if it's just a crazy person. Like that's why that's why I think courage and bravery are two different words. Bravery would be courage. Courageous would be like the smart brave person, and brave person would be like the person who just does something because they're just not afraid, but it doesn't matter because maybe they'll do something bad too. Like the courageous person would be the politically active person who preaches the correct thing. Like me talking about weed, even though federally it's illegal and people frown on being high on YouTube, or oh shit, I lost my train of thought. The other one. Yeah, the guy trying to overthrow the Byzantine emperor, and then you don't get you don't get any, like say you die without getting any social reward or financial reward, and it was just you don't get anything from it, but the person is still happy because they know that they did the right thing. That's a courageous person. A lot of famous people never got famous in their life. Van Gogh, I think some writers too, Anne Frank, and some philosophical writers. Yeah, so that's the courageous person. The brave person would be the person who like everybody is. You're in a battle, and you need one person to give their life to protect the bridge to let everybody else run away, even though that person knows they're going to die. Well, that person, as they do that, they know they're going to be a hero because everybody knows it. They're all telling him they need him to do it, and he dies anyway. That's the brave person. The courageous person would be the person who will go and protect the bridge, even when everybody tells him not to, but he knows that they'll know that it was the right thing in the end. Um, so, so yeah, courage is courage is something that I think would have fixed the Roman Empire because if people would just follow the law, even by sacrificing themselves, um, instead of just being brave, they could step it up to be courageous. Because and apparently there's a huge difference between bravery and courageousness. Because in the past, Manlius Munius, was that his name? He went in to try to assassinate the king of Porcina in ancient Rome in like 600 BC, 650 BC or whatever. And he gets captured. So then the guy's like, "We're going to torture you, burn you alive." And he's like, "I don't care." And he sticks his hand in the fire and lets his hand wither and burn to nothing. And he's like, "Oh, we're badasses. Every Roman, if there's 300 of us, you're going to do this to you. Haha." Like that's a brave guy, but oh my god, I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah, and so they had a bunch of those though. Like whenever you go into war, everybody who dies in battle, like all the 3,000 slaves who died or prisoners of war who died in Augustus's sea battle in Rome in Naumachia. For those about to die, we salute you. Like those guys are brave. So there's obviously no shortage of bravery, but courage. There was a huge shortage of courage because courage is well, maybe you're doing it for nothing. Like you have to really have faith in yourself if you're going to actually go through with stuff that people didn't do enough in the past. For example, people taking over power, like in ancient Rome, you're supposed to, the consul, you're supposed to follow, give up the consulship and vote, and people would do all kinds of deals to protect themselves. Oh yeah, well, like when the perfect example is when there's an emperor, and if you want to stay in the emperor's court, so you want to stay in power, so he'll just do whatever the emperor does, even though you know that it's just giving more central power, and you give up more and more of your power to give it to the emperor because it's the easier thing for you. Um, and if you rebel, you'll just get killed and nobody will remember you. And it's like so you're sitting here like, well, can I? I could live another 30 years in this nice house with all these slaves and, baths and games and stuff for me to do. Or I could die a very brutal, painful death next week and never, and just extinguish into nothing, because I don't even know if they believed in reincarnation in Rome. And so to go, no, I'm going to do the right thing, and then just have my name obliterate into nothing and not experience any of that by upholding the truth, even if there's a slight chance that maybe it'll start a precedent that will motivate other people to stand up for their office, even if they get killed. And people didn't do that, and so then it got more centralized, and they started doing coups against each other, assassinations, and then the Byzantine Empire extinguished and had to get replaced by the barbarians, the Arabs and the Goths, and Bulgars. So in modern day, courage would be like me, like going, hey, I'm high, haha, we should legalize weed, motherfuckers. And people are like, fuck you. And you're like, no way. No, I'm being paranoid. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. Like if it ruins you financially, um, yeah, paint yourself into a corner. That would be I'll end up painting myself into a corner, and then I have to move in under the bridge, and then I get arrested and I go to jail because Donald Trump and all his cronies end up trumping Colorado law and making it illegal again. And so then they retroactively go against all the stoners who were stoners when it was legal. But could you categorize that as foolishness? Because, I mean, as I predicted, I'll be successful being as much of a stoner as I want. So anyway, so if you're gonna answer that question like black and white, um, I would say that courage definitely exists, and you shouldn't across the board classify it as something that's just what did you say? It's not something that's just ultimately self-interest of foolishness. That's kind of that's looking at the glass being half empty. That's looking at something pessimistically, and if you're going to look at life through the lens of pessimism, you know, nobody's going to want to be your friend. Like, imagine if you're hanging out with somebody, your friend from high school, and he's like, yo, man, I'm going to totally revolutionize my industry. I'm a cop, and I'm going to change the weed laws, even though we're all told to do weed. And then I were to go, that guy would go, you're just trying to become, like, use that as for your political purposes because you see weed is becoming legal. You're gonna try to run for governor. Selfish. Like that's basically the same thing as trying to discourage somebody. If you'd actually say that to them, that's like saying you don't believe in what they're doing and you actually think weed should be illegal. And it's like Mr. Debbie Downer, like go watch Debbie Downer, and that's what you are. If you say that kind of stuff, it's better to the people who create the world and make the world a better place are the people who actually do it, not the people who sit on their asses. When we had a revolutionary war against England in 1776, only 10% of Americans actually fought. 90% of the people were like, whatever, you can't. You guys are like losers, and then of course we win, and everybody's like, shows up at the 4th of July parties and fucking sings along with the national anthem. So, yeah, be careful about that pessimism stuff because the pessimistic people, those people never accomplish anything, man. You're never gonna make money. You're never gonna create anything, cause anything by being pessimistic. You're gonna discourage other people. You're gonna make them not like you. You're gonna discourage yourself. You're going to listen to other people more when they say discouraging things because it's going to be more in line with what you believe because you said it and you think it. And yeah, so just stay away from those people. Or if you are one of those people, don't be one of those people. And maybe some people are just too lazy or not imaginative enough to make a difference. And so I guess their life quest should just be try not to get jealous, you know, of the people who do. You know, don't feel like you're inadequate, and so you have to fight back by making them inadequate, but just because they're different. You know, it's better to just it's better to just try to educate yourself to see what's happening and how where the world is developing, and to realize that the more democracy and the more freedom, personal freedoms we have, the better off, the more liberally our economy can flow, and because the more people can be thrown into the work circulation. You know, like me, I can't. I mean, um, I have enough money. I've got still have my car that I can sell this winter. Um, but if shit went down, I don't know, man. It might be hard for me to get a job. I can't just go across the street and get a job at the supermarket because you can't be a stoner and you can't have weed. Weed stays in your blood for 30 days. You know, I'd have to quit for 30 days, which, if you think about it, that's fucked up. You know, like I can't be a stoner even though it's legal because they say so and be on the authority of the federal law. I have a friend who rented a place, okay, uh, and the rule of the renter is you can't smoke weed inside the apartment. And so but he's a stoner like me, so he has to like pretend like he's visiting his mom or something every time, blow into the pillow and shit. You know what I mean? And so the renter, you know, made that rule on the authority of the federal law because it's illegal federally. You know, if it could be legal federally, then that asshole landlord couldn't be like, yeah, you're not allowed to smoke marijuana inside your apartment. You know, and so yeah, people need to be courageous and be like, that's fucking bullshit. And if you live in the apartment, be like, that's fucking bullshit. That's fucking bullshit until you get evicted, and then you have to move like an hour away because like nobody, like that's a courageous person. People who do stuff because they know it's right, even when it fucks them over. Um, and there's you know there's different levels of it. You know, there's like courageous would be something that if you're going to be brave against something that actually makes a difference. Foolishness would be if somebody wants to like, you know, pump up their ego. Like if somebody calls them a dweebwad and they're like, "Fuck you," you know, like what is that? What is that? How's that going to change anything? Um, you know what I mean? It's not courageous to be like, "Hey, fuck you, dweebwad double," or whatever. It's better to just uh, complain to like the newspaper if you're landlord, and then but let everybody know who you are. If your landlord says you can't smoke weed inside their apartment, you know. So what the hell was I just talking about? Yeah, so that's what courageousness is. And that's why they have like medals and awards for courageousness because people we always value that, you know, we always value that we need people out there um, who know what the actual law is, you know, like if you're a bunch of Roman guards out on the guard tower and you're the only one who's like, oh no, we got to fight these guys who are coming down. You see them, you know, the barbarians are riding down on their horses and you're outnumbered. They're like, let's run. And you're like, no, but we're supposed to stay and fight. That's what they said. We already sent the messenger out to tell them that they're coming. We need to stay and fight. No way, we got to run. You know, the guy who stays and fights because he knows that that's the law. That's the courageous guy. And so, yeah, that stuff that's why we have medals for it. And it's something that we support. So, yes, and if we have medals for it, you know, it's for a reason. And so that's a good thing. It's not just foolishness of self interest. Um, yeah, so how does a society cultivate courage? I think a society should cultivate courage by trying to make education and you know the political system and everything as democratic as possible, um, allowing everybody to participate. And so you have to expect every single citizen to express every single one of their political opinions publicly. So everybody has to have a YouTube channel where they say what they think about YouTube, about all of their political opinions, and a website where they list their political opinions about everything. The people who do that should be labeled the courageous ones because people like to. There's different communities, and sometimes people don't believe in the same thing, and all the people in their communities believe, and it can get them like in trouble, like literally in trouble, like fired, and then lose their houses and stuff. And so, um, yeah, so we should encourage people to do that, because then it would it would make it harder for um, people to gang up on other people who do express their mind, even if they're a little bit different. Like I know people, I'm not going to go into it too much, but who live in super conservative areas and can't talk about their actual political beliefs because of their own where they live. So I think everybody understands that. Anyway, I think I've babbled for long enough. Holy shit, 35 minutes. Okay, peace.